Take two, we're talking hot seats, both players and coaches or staff. All right, welcome. We're re-recording again. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we record a whole episode without actually recording, so this is our take two. Take two, we're talking hot seats, both players and coaches or staff of the Miami Dolphins. So, as promised, last episode, we said we were going to talk some hot seats, and we're going to do that now. We'll start with some of the players, actually, because I think they're warm seats for the most part and not so much hot seats. But I wanted to bring our biggest concern and our biggest hot seat is our number 2 pick from a few drafts ago, and that was Cam Smith. I don't know if it was our second pick, but either way, he was in the second round. Cam Smith, he's got only one opportunity to kind of make himself known, or at least show that maybe in the future he could be that. He could be a starting cornerback. He's got this year. I don't think he's it right now, and if he doesn't show any type of improvement, he's not staying in this team, and that's my opinion. He hasn't shown anything at any point in the last couple seasons that he's starting cornerback in this team, or really probably any team in the NFL at this point.
I think he's going to be gone. I think it's going to be gone. I don't like the whole situation just generally. I think I don't know if his heart is in it. I don't know if he, I still haven't seen anything. I'm not that's an awesome researcher or anything like that, but I've never seen anything about Cam Smith's injury.
Right.
It could be one of those pretend injuries, like where, okay, you're going to be inactive this week, so we're just going to say you're on the injured list or whatever. Or
right.
Just, but a lot of times it seems like he was on the inactive list just because, didn't want to play him or whatever. And we've heard, this year we've heard from Chris Grier, that he's no longer going to hold his hand. He's got to perform now, or it's basically the highway, right?
He shouldn't have so many words.
Exactly. In so many words, he's saying this is put up or shut up this year, and I just don't see it. There was enough red flags to me. If you look at the combine reports and things like that, the guy didn't seem to have the heart, or give up on some plays. Things like that, things like big red flags for a lot of people. A lot of people thought he was a 3rd rounder, 4th rounder.
Right.
And we took him in the 2nd. So to me, there was enough red flags there to not make this pick. I think it was if I remember correctly, it was a thin year for defensive backs, I think, but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I don't know that you go with someone just to go with a position player. I think you got to go with the best available most times.
Yeah.
Right. And so no, I think they move on from Cam Smith this year. I think he might get a shot here in the preseason, in minicamp and the preseason to get some time in, but he might be cut even before we get to the first week of week 1.
Right. And if I remember correctly, I think he was one of the higher cornerbacks. It's not like he, according to Mel Kiper's board or whatever, it wasn't quite like a reach at that point when they picked him up, but it was a situation where, maybe there was some low character flaws with that player. and they decided to pick him anyways. And like I said, Miami is not the team to be putting these cats into therapy and freaking getting them out of their sorry character. It's just not. It's not in this team. They can't control players. What makes you think you shouldn't draft low character freaking experiments? At that point, if it was a cornerback light draft, just go for the ones that have high character. The ones that are always going to come to practice. They're going to work hard no matter what. Those are the guys that you roll the dice on, because they might surprise you how well they could pick up things, how hard they're going to work to learn the game and get better physically and mentally. And so I think the high character guys are the ones that you should have been targeting if it was a position of need, but that draft might have been light. Just look for a guy that you think is a dog, kind of like Van Ginkel, right? You never knew he was going to be that great of a linebacker, but he's a dog. Like, he was going to be out there with high motor, just trying to make plays at all times, no matter what. So, yeah, Cam Smith for sure. Like I said, we agree. The kid's probably going to be done after. If not even before this season, we'll see. We'll see when camp starts and see some people are probably going to beat him out, and then we won't see him again. But yeah, Cam Smith is definitely on the hot seat for this season. Another player that I kind of wanted to talk about real quick, it wasn't too crazy because he's a younger player and he's still got some ceiling to get to, I believe, is Patrick Paul. Just being that, like I said, he could be a starter, but he hasn't quite hit that level yet. And I think he's probably penned in as a starter this year. So he's going to have the opportunity to show whether he's going to be able to remain as a starter or they're going to have to be looking for somebody else either during the season or after this season. And that's why I got Patrick Paul on the semi-warm seat. What do you think?
Well, he's going to be thrown into the fire, right, this year. He did start a couple games last year. Yeah, like any of these young players, he needs a fair shot, right? And this year it's going to be his fair shot, I would think. I think he's going to be the starter at left tackle, and I project him to be a good starter for this team. Not an elite guy. He's not going to blow you away.
Right.
He's definitely got the frame, for the part. And maybe he turns into something, right? But I think he's going to be an average, maybe a slight above average starter left tackle in this league. So, I mean, that's just me being positive on Patrick. I think, of course, just like any young player, he's got some stuff to work on, but I think he's going to be all right. I don't think his seat is maybe warm enough to maybe to the extent that maybe he'll sit a couple of games just because, maybe he's got some things to work on or something like that. Right. But I don't see him losing too many games because of performance.
Yeah, so he may not lose a roster spot.
Right. No, I don't think that's it at all. But he might sit a couple of games just because they want to give him a break or he's not, maybe he needs to work on a couple of things. But other than that, I think he's going to be a pretty good left tackle.
Another player that I think is in the hot seat, and mostly because it's just like a package deal, right? When the team doesn't perform, there's certain players / staff members that are always going to be in that hot seat. If you're not making the playoffs, you're not having winning seasons. These are the guys that always get blamed. A lot of times, rightfully so, but they're not necessarily bad. A lot of times, they're not necessarily bad players. They might just be not in the right system, not with the right roster, but they end up being the ones that get to take the axe probably faster than anybody else. So our QB1, Tua Tagovailoa, he's in the hot seat. Just like I said before, there's been plenty of chances to win a playoff game and again, a package deal, right? If a couple other people in the staff go, then he'd be the one. He's also going to be going, because whoever replaces head coach, GM, they're going to want their own QB1. They don't want to have somebody else's QB. I mean, I'm sure there's some situations where, I would go, I'd love to go over there and coach Tua. Maybe that situation actually exists. I'm not sure. I mean, it does happen. But Tua's been here long enough, and I think that if they don't at least make the playoffs, I think that's where the cutoff is for him. I think if they don't make the playoffs, and maybe have to win I think we talked about this before. I think winning one game is where they're completely safe. Yeah. Making the playoffs is still like, it's a little shaky for him, both him and the head coach Mike McDaniel. So, Tua specifically, I think that he needs to make the playoffs. And obviously be the one that carries it. I mean, obviously, if they make the playoffs, that means that he had a decent season. So, what do you think as far as Tua? Do you think if they don't make the playoffs, is he still in the team?
If they don't make the playoffs, man, I go back and forth on this because I still believe in Tua. I've seen enough from Tua to say, man, he's
a good quarterback.
That's some spectacular stuff, right? I mean, the firepower that is theoretically there, potentially there every year, and as long as you maintain health, unfortunately, it's just going to be the same story, even if it's health related. Same story, right? And I hate to say it, but even if it's injury related and he misses substantial time and we miss the playoffs again, sorry, man, but I like Tua, I really do.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, it is a package deal. 99% of the time, you're not going to have a coach coming into a situation where you haven't won a playoff game and maybe 2 years consecutively of not even going to the playoffs. Right. He's going to want to make that new coach is going to make a change.
Right.
So I do not see Tua playing. He's got a contract that he's got to play out and stuff like that. So that's going to be difficult to get rid of someone like Tua. They could probably have a very expensive backup, right? But
that's a very good point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. He might not be going anywhere just because he's got a contract. And I mean, what can you do?
And who's gonna pick it up at that point, right? Who's gonna pick that up when you have the history that he has of injury, of not performing in big games, of not performing in cold games, of all this stuff, man. Yeah. Like there's some flashes there, but even at some point you say, well, it's not worth it. A couple of flashes here and there, it's not going to be worth it. And I don't think other coaches would take a flyer on Tua at this point.
How many games do you believe that he can miss before they start saying he ain't it? Even if Weaver's defense is just the one that takes us to the playoffs, and with Zach Wilson basically. Tua did well, but gets hurt. Let's say 3 games. He misses. Let's say 3 games, and we lose. I don't know, 2 out of the 3. Like, do you think the team continues to keep him around, kind of in the same, like, almost every year he's missing 3 to 6 games?
Man, I don't know, man. Because he's under contract, he might save his job at this point. If I'd say this, if the team competes, if the team looks energized, motivated, people want to play with each other, people are having fun, people are actually performing well, Tua's performing well, and he gets injured, but Zach comes in. There's enough wins in there that we get into a playoff and maybe eke out a win or barely lose, but they performed well. They competed, right?
Yeah, I guess the Ravens, they lost by 3 or something like that.
Yeah,
that's a competitive game. Yeah.
Or in Buffalo, and it was like 59 feet of snow, and they still did well. Chan had 3 touchdowns, and we lost by a field goal. I think he still saves his job at that point.
Yeah,
right?
There's a lot of variables for sure. I mean, you could, specifically for these guys, right? For Tua, there's so many variables just because of the injury thing, right? It's like, he made the playoffs, but he missed 4 games. You know what I mean?
And he missed the playoff game, right? It was Zach Wilson in the playoffs.
Right, exactly. So there's so many more variables than any other player, just because he has, one of the highest injury concerns in the NFL, especially because it just seems like if it's a concussion specifically, that could be it. That could be it for his career. Nobody will want to touch him. If he gets another concussion, and I hope he knows that, Tua, dude, you cannot take another concussion, bro. Don't be putting your head down or any of that crap. Because I hope one more of those and you miss a couple of games and you'll never see the field again, bro.
That's a great point. It might not even be a GM's decision at that point or a coach's decision if he gets another concussion.
It might be a doctor's decision.
He needs to step away.
Yeah, his wife will probably tell him. His family's probably going to tell him, hey, that's it, dude. That's the last straw. I mean, your CTE is probably terrible. But, yeah, so, much luck to Tua and to us, really, as fans, that he stays, injury-free this year, plays all games, makes the playoffs, wins a game. We get to see him another year. And then we get to keep another person that's in the hot seat, which is Mike McDaniel, kind of for the same reasons, same variables. The thing about Mike McDaniels, and we talked about in the previous episodes too, is that the book is out on his offense, and it didn't go well last year for the offense. The offense was like 24th or something like that. So for somebody that specifically got hired because of being an offensive guru, it kind of, you at the same time, you don't really have a leg to stand on at this point. If your offense is not guruing, then you're obsolete. You're obsolete because you don't do any defensive work. You don't really manage anything else within the team besides the offense. You're really an offensive coordinator. And so, because nothing else has shown that you have the ability to do besides having some creative plays. And I've seen them. Very nice creative run game, and coupled with a good passing game. But are you able to adjust that? Once the teams have figured it out, can you adjust it or not? And if you don't have a good offensive performance, I would say I think a variable that you could put on for Mike McDaniel as far as staying as head coach is, top maybe half offense. And that's I think that's being very nice with the offensive weapons that we have. I think it's nice of me to say you need to at least have top half offenses in the NFL.
Absolutely, right? That's the thing right there. 2024, it looked like people made adjustments. You got 2 deep zones. You're covering the outside, and that's why John Smith had the year that he did, was because it was wide open in the middle, right? And so they adjusted. They were gonna. They thought, okay, let's have Jonnu Smith beat us, but not Tyreek and Waddle. And that's how they adjusted. Now it's time for McDaniel to make his own adjustments and really show what he's capable of offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other part of it is the coaching part, right? And he's been preaching change of culture and all this stuff, and we're gonna see, right? We're gonna see it in action. We're gonna see if it actually happens. If we miss the playoffs, or if we don't win a playoff game, I think that's it for him, right? And again, this is a package deal. Him and Tua, probably, barring some of the other variables that we talked about. I think that this would be the break for McDaniel if we don't get to that point, and also if we don't see that change in culture that he's preaching, right? And Grier too, he said we're trying to win here. This is not a rebuild. We're going to win, and I think we're talking about Grier next. So good transition.
I hope he's a man of his words. I hope he's not just pulling the wool over our eyes by saying that they're trying to win, right? Like, I hope it's legit. A lot of people are saying that they're kind of disguising their tank with this trade. He's the one that's on the hottest seat because you put it together. You're responsible for the head coach. You're responsible for approving the draft picks. I'm sure there's some discussions with the owner and head coach and everything, but you are the general manager. You make all the decisions as far as personnel movements, contracts, and all that crap. And yeah, if there's no playoffs, Grier has to go. If his free agency or trades don't go as well as they should have been, then that's another variable that needs to get looked at. He is responsible for the roster. If the roster can't hack it, he should be gone. And he should have been gone probably last year. It is and should be his last opportunity with the team this year.
Of course, we're looking at this with a very high level lens, right? We don't know how this season's going to go, but I think that if we do miss the playoffs, it depends on how what the context is behind missing the playoffs. If the team was competing, there was culture change, there just wasn't enough playmakers, especially in that secondary, because that you look at that as you see that's a glaring weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it depends on the context of how we missed the playoffs, because if we missed the playoffs but people were competing, it seems like McDaniel's got his shit together. He did turn around the offense. He made the right adjustments. We just didn't have enough offensively. We were losing 45-40 every game, that kind of thing. Then McDaniel might save his job. Tua might save his. But Chris Grier at that point would have to go, because if you don't have enough players, especially on the defense, especially in that secondary, to make enough plays defensively, to make enough stops, to prevent enough big plays, then it is on you. You handcuffed this team to the point where we couldn't keep a Jalen Ramsey, or we couldn't. Well, Jalen Ramsey wanted to go, right? But to bring someone else, right, or to draft just a bit better. The Jets cornerback that they picked like 5 or 6 picks after we picked Cam Smith. I forget his name. I think it's Tyreek too, like Tyreek something. I forget. But he way better year last year. Well, of course we didn't see any Cam Smith, right? But he had a pick 6. He had a couple interceptions and a pick 6. mean, the guy's producing. But so that's on you. And then with Noah Benogany, I think I'm saying that right. That was another guy, another second round cornerback.
Shit, I forgot about him.
That, you know, he was terrible. Just terrible, man. He has had some nice picks. He has had some nice undrafted free agents, and a lot of that you can attribute to scouting and people like that. And I think, you know, selecting coaches might be another weakness. So there's too many. There's too many weaknesses around Chris Grier's, you know, performance as a GM. So, man, you know, I think if the season goes sideways because we didn't have enough players, enough playmakers, especially on the defense, then that's because that's on Chris Grier, man. That's because of the moves that he made, and the draft moves that he made, and the contract moves that he made. So, yeah. I'm hoping, you know, of course, I'm hoping that it doesn't get to that. I'm hoping we have a good year. I'm hoping that the culture change is there. I'm hoping we have enough on the defensive line, and that Minka has another Pro Bowl year, and that is enough to contain offenses, because there are some powerful quarterbacks that we're going to be facing this year. And, you know, I hope we have enough. I hope we win a playoff game. And, you know, and even if we win a playoff game, this is a question for you. If we win a playoff game, did the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade save Chris Grier's job? Because they're, you know, for the most part, everybody's saying we won that trade, right? That was a good trade. We got a lot more than people thought we were going to get for these two guys. And we talked about it last week, right?
50-50,
if we win a playoff game, let's say, does Chris Grier still remain the GM of the Dolphins? Is he doing enough?
I think the answer to that is going to have to be, has to wait till the season at least starts and maybe even ends, just because, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no way that we could know who wins the trade until the games start to happen, right? You know, maybe Jalen balls out and he looks a lot better. You know, Minka's just, you know, maybe he's OBJ and not Waller, you know what I mean? And he's kind of just sitting around collecting a paycheck and then, you know, exit stage left after the season, hoping that somebody gives him money. So I think it's one of those things where we'll have to just see. I'm hoping that we win if he does, I guess if Minkah does almost as good as, you know, as a couple of seasons ago where he's a Pro Bowler, if he does at least similar to that, if he's a respectable safety and Waller does, you know, 500, you know, he has some good games in there and produces, helps the offense kind of spread out a little bit. Then and we don't, and you're saying we don't make the playoffs, or we do make the playoffs?
Even if we do make the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess it depends on those, you know, how those two guys produce, and if they're getting another cornerback, that's gonna help. Yeah, I think it's a wait and see, man. It would be hard to say right now, especially if they make the playoffs. Because I think if they make the playoffs, there's something that tells me that Ross is just, he might, you know, maybe Ross is just like a good dude. I don't know. He's soft, like not soft like in a way of like, you know, he's a businessman, but at the same time, maybe he likes these guys personally, like Grier, and he keeps them around because he likes them. Maybe Grier's funny. I don't know, but who knows, man? It's very hard to say. But
well, I think that Ross, I think you're right. I think if they win a playoff game, I think they all save their jobs, because that's just the way historically Ross has handled the team, right?
Yeah.
If he likes, if they're doing all right, you know,
and what's the other option
status
too,
quo.
though?
Exactly.
Also, you know what I mean? is the option starting all over. Who in the Miami franchise wants to wait another 10 years, bro? If that, like, who wants to think about this? I'm looking, trying to look at it from a Ross perspective, right? Is that okay? They kind of crawled into the playoffs, and maybe they didn't get stopped, but they lost. And you're looking at your franchise, and you're like, dude, do I make a change here? Yeah. If I make a change, my team is starting all over.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big factor, right? It's like, in his mind, it's like, dude, I'm going to lose the crowd. I'm going to lose people coming to the games if I try to tank again for Archie Manning. What's his name? Is it Archie? What is it?
Arch.
Arch Manning. You know what I mean? Yeah. If I'm tanking for him, I'm sure some excitement will happen, right? But you don't know for sure that you're going to be the one picking, the next great quarterback. Even if you do got the number one pick, sometimes it doesn't work out, bro. You know what I mean? Sometimes it doesn't work out at all. Especially for Miami, we're just not that lucky. We're just not that lucky, man. And so I think that's a big factor when it comes down. And it just kind of hit me in my head as we're doing this episode is that's going to be a big factor in Ross's mind. Like, do I want to hit the reset button and do it all over again?
But if you don't, then you're just prolonging it, right? You're I mean, right? I mean, if we're going to have more of the same, especially if we, I just hope that if we miss the playoffs that he does something. He has to. There has to be a change made, right? And it depends on how it happens, right? If it's injuries, if it's the culture, if it's we didn't have enough players, you got to make a decision based on that. And then a couple of people might have to lose their jobs, right? Yeah. But I just hope that he does something. If we win a playoff game, is it just because we're doing just enough to win a playoff game, but we're never going to do more than that? I think going to the playoffs consistently and having a chance to go to the Super Bowl, we want that, of course. But I don't want it to be just, we just did just enough to win the playoff games and then we just have more of the same.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I mean, but man.
Yeah, I do.
Because
it's like the definition of insanity, right? Like, you keep doing the same thing and expect a different result.
Right. Anyways, we're running out of time here. But anyway, I wanted to say it was Tyreek Stevenson who was talking about, and it was the Bears, not the Jets. I think I said Jets, but
yeah, you did say Jets.
Giving credit to the Jets. No, I don't want to do that. But anyways, it was Tyreek Stevenson, and he's been a really good corner for them, and he was a guy that they picked about 5 or 6 picks after we picked Cam Smith.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the thing is, so real quick, I know, like you said, we're running out of time, but let me just close it out with this. I think Grier's in the hot seat specifically for, trades like Jalen Ramsey, not out, but in. Because that's like, if we're economical at all, that's not the way to do it. Don't go get the high priced freaking star. I've never believed in that, right? Like when they got Sue, Jalen Ramsey, I don't know, Marshall back in the day as a receiver, like people like that, where they were just like, oh, let me go get this like star, bring them in, huh?
Ocho Cinco,
yeah, but that's kind of way back. But yeah, either way, but it's like I hate when they do that, right? Let me go get this guy. Let me take on this big contract from a guy that all of them have character flaws too. Sue, Jalen Ramsey, freaking Ocho Cinco, freaking Brandon Marshall. All of those guys were freaking crazy. And you bring them in, you're trying to juggle all these contracts, and now you don't have money to pay all the rest of the guys like Jonnu Smith. They got to freaking leave. Zach Zeeler's still battling. Who knows? We're going to lose some of our good guys. Instead, bro, you keep those guys that are like good players, not freaking elite, but good players. It's like you keep a bunch of those guys instead of the one star. And that's why he needs to, that's why he's in a hot seat. Like, now we don't have any money to go get a Santi Samuel. Because I bet that's why he hasn't been. He's not with Dolphin right now. Because he's the best cornerback out there right now that's available. He's not with us because we don't have the money to do it. Right?
Right.
Because we grabbed Jalen Ramsey at some point.
Right. And also Tyreek. Did we need to get Tyreek in here?
No, I mean Tyreek's another one, but at least he's kind of put in the work to, that first seat 2023, he was number one player in the fucking NFL, bro. Like, so at least that. So if you're gonna grab them, make sure they hit, bro.
Yeah. You got to be
sure. So, and we'll see. We'll see this year. I think I got faith in Tyreek Hill. I think he's gonna play. I think he's gonna play football this year. So
I think so too.
Anyway, but yeah, let's close it out. We got stuff to do. We do have a life. So thanks for all our listeners coming out. Join the conversation. See who's in the hot seat for you, and what are those variables that make it, one of those things where like, hey, he needs to go. Tell us who's in your hot seat and who should be or who should not be based on what we've talked about today. And yeah, let us know. Get in the conversation. Please like and subscribe. And see you next time here on Outside the Pod. Fins up.
Fins up.